Endometrial polyp is a benign localized growth of the endometrium that contains glands and stroma of the endometrium. It could be either a single or multiple, it could be sessile or pedunculated, and the size may vary from millimeters to centimeter. Occasionally, they contain smooth muscle in addition to the gland and stroma and vessels. Well, the presenting symptom of polyp is many a time asymptomatic, could be symptomatic in the form of an abnormal intermenstrual or a postmenstrual uterine bleeding, and occasionally it can lead to infertility and pregnancy loss. The incidence of malignancy being caused by polyp has been reported to be almost 13%, and we know that it increases with age, tamoxifen use, diabetes, hypertension, and postmenopausal bleeding. Prevalence of endometrial polyp is definitely higher in the infertile group. One retrospective study, 1,000 patients for evaluation of uterine cavity prior to IVF showed incidence as high as 32%. So you have to evaluate patients who have unexplained infertility with a proper 3D sonography or a saline-infused sonography. Well, the pathogenesis is definitely the estrogen is the reason for stimulation of the endometrium, and so unopposed estradiol levels, especially in patients who are hypertensive, obese, diabetic, whenever we use gonadotropin for ovarian stimulation in IVF, and age is a very important risk, and associated gynecological condition like cervical polyp and endometriosis. Patients who are on use of tamoxifen have a higher incidence of developing endometrial polyps. At molecular level, they have overexpression of estrogen and progesterone receptor and aromatase receptor, and increased beta cell lymphoma 2 protein expression, mutation in HMGHI and HMGHG. Well, as per the AGL, the diagnosis is definitely transvaginal sonography provides a reliable information for the detection of endometrial polyps and should be the investigation of choice. There is no doubt that a good transvaginal sonography will not pick up. In case you require, you can combine it with a Doppler, or you can use it with saline sonography to exactly delineate the endometrial walls. Definitely, addition of contrast to the sonography adds to the evaluation capability. Blind curettage and biopsy should not be used for diagnosis of endometrial polyp, and that's a very, very important message. Now, if you look at the treatment available today, expectant treatment is only for asymptomatic premenopausal women who have small polyps less than 10 millimeter, which may regress in many cases. Almost 25% cases, the regression has been reported. Medical management has a limited role. LNG containing device is sometimes tried in patients on tamoxifen. GnRH agonist or other antagonist is only used before hysteroscopic resection to build up the hemoglobin. Surgical management is the gold standard, and hysteroscopic polypectomy is the way to do not only diagnose but treatment. You can either do it in the ambulatory setting or in the operation theatre, depends on the size, the availability of all your resources, and of course the experience of the surgeon. Intrauterine adhesion is a low risk factor after polypectomy because the myometrium is not incised. Guidelines by the AGL for management of endometrial polyps: conservative management is reasonable, particularly for small polyps and if asymptomatic. Medical management is not recommended at this time. Hysteroscopic polypectomy remains the gold standard for treatment of polyps. There does not appear to be any difference in the clinical outcomes in the way different techniques are used, and removal for histological assessment in postmenopausal women is appropriate by hysteroscopic, and hysteroscopic removal is to be preferred over hysterectomy. So this is where saving the uterus is very important. Just by the presence of polyps, hysterectomy is not advised. It is better to do conservative surgery by hysteroscopic polypectomy. If you look at the steps where how it is done, it is scissors and graspers, cautery needle, both bipolar and monopolar are available, loop resection with bipolar resectoscope, and of course hysteroscopic tissue and retrieval system, which are faster, less painful, and complete removal is reported to be more with HTRS. Now, this is a very nice pedunculated polyp, which is long in the lengthwise. You can see how wonderfully you can remove this by the scissor. This is a postmenopausal polyp. You have to know how to work with the scissor at this stage, and cutting it with the scissor is very simple because the base is very narrow, and then holding it with the grasper. Exactly, you should know where to hold because the internal os is not dilated, but this polyp, since it's long, it's more likely to come out without dilatation. Because if you need to remove a polyp, large polyp, through a narrow cervix, it will slip and create more complication in the form of polyp being lost or perforation. This is the polyp which can be removed in toto because lengthwise it is longer. Well, the use of bipolar needle for polypectomy, this is a demonstration. Again, you will just cut the base with the same way you use the scissor to cut the polyp off. There are pointed needles also available. This is more of a ball electrode which is being used here in the removal of the polyp, and the tips are the same. Go close to the base, and a patient who is for reproduction, a scissor or an HTRS is supposed to be much better than this way of cautery or energy. But if the patient is only for abnormal uterine bleeding, this method is an acceptable method, and that is where choosing the right tool for the right indication for the right patient is very important. But this is how a needle is being used to cut the polyp, and this polyp is again small, will definitely come out with your grasper without dilatation of the cervix. And after the cautery is used and cut, you just have to put the grasper the same way you have used in the previous case and remove the polyp. Larger the polyp, never cut it straight away. Always slice it, because larger polyps is not going to come out of the undilated cervix, and there will be lot of struggle in removing these polyps. As you can see in this particular case, the polyp base was cut thinking that the base is small, but the size of the polyp made it extremely difficult to remove it out of the internal os and out of the cavity. Multiple instrumentation were tried, and all, since it was blind, this is going to again show you what a blind procedure can do into the uterine cavity. The polyp is cut, but we are trying fan graspers and other things. Ultimately, the polyp was lost, and what we could see was there is a small perforation and the polyp is not to be located. So one had to do laparoscopy in this case to find out if the polyp is gone into the endometrial cavity, because a polyp without histopathology cannot be lost for you to not miss, endometrial carcinoma. But this is how a large polyp is not to be removed. It has to be sliced before you cut off the base. Means it has to be made thinned out before you cut out the base and remove it out. As you can see, the fluid is showing you that there is some perforation, and one did laparoscopy to find out the polyp, and that is where the perforation has occurred. How to do the slicing? Either you do it with the scissors, cut it into vertical pieces if it is widthwise broad, make it smaller and then cut the base. As you can see in this particular polyp, you will cut it and make it into smaller pieces so that each piece is easily removable out of the uterine cavity. This is how the needle you can use. If you do not have scissor, you can use the needle again for slicing, but the idea is the same. Make it into 3 equal pieces rather than one larger piece. So after you make it into slices, then cut the base, because once the base is cut,